What's up, everybody? Paul here from the Hoops Crew, and it's reaction time to a bitterly disappointing grand final loss. The Cats went down by 47 points to the Brisbane Lions, a huge turnaround from a qualifying final piece of dominance from the Cats only 3 weeks ago. So it's a bit of a shock, honestly, that this is what has occurred. But ultimately, too much was left to too few. Some of the most experienced and most important players in our team simply didn't show up, or in the case of Jeremy Cameron, unfortunately got injured and could only do so much to try and get us to where we needed to be. Brisbane, they played a fantastic team game and rightfully deserved to win based on that alone. Let's get into the results here. And as I said, Cats went down by 47 points, 11-9-75, and honestly, it should have been more. A few junk time goals at the end there kind of cleaned things up a smidge, but 11-9-75 went down to the Lions, 18-14, 122. And as I said, this game could have been, it could have been worse. There was a bit of junk time stuff at the end there. As you see, there's those 3 goals at the very end here. Ollie Dempsey, and Sean Manor getting all on the board there at the very end. That just added a hint of respectability to it. But it was, Brisbane were already in celebration mode at that point, and they well and truly put the cue in the rack. And even early on, 1 goal, 6. I think Bailey had kicked 4 of those behinds at that point. The Lions had the opportunities early on to really, really kind of force the issue with the Cats. We fought on pretty well. I think we actually, despite the fact that Brisbane had those scoring shots, we were actually the stronger team through the first half. And obviously the fact that scores were level, every single point of data was basically level at halftime. I think the Cats, I wouldn't say is controlled, but I think they were the better team in the first half. Oh, sorry. They had the better run of it. We were not the better team. There was moments of brilliance from a few people that gave us the opportunities that we needed. We took those opportunities when they arose. But it was left to too little. And eventually that damn wall broke when Charlie Cameron kicked his second and then his third. Lachie Neale got on the board with that big bomb. Charlie Cameron got on the board again at the beginning of the fourth. It was done. Especially with that Charlie Cameron goal to begin the fourth quarter, they'd kind of broken the back of us at that point. And there was no putting the genie back in the bottle, unfortunately, at that stage. The game was well and truly over. And it was just... And don't get me wrong, there was some efforts, Mark Blitzarves really, really tried to lift the team, but some fantastic coaching by Chris Fagan and execution by Cam Rayner, as much as I don't like to admit it, kind of nipped Mark Blitzarves' influence in the bud pretty quickly there as well. They knew that he was going to try and half palm it down to himself and just try and shark it, and Cam Rayner bolted off the edge of the square to take him out on multiple occasions. It was very, very well executed by the Lions in that respect. But that's your worm. Probably the last 35 minutes of football were 35 minutes we'd rather forget. Prior to that, anything was possible. We were right there or thereabouts and had a lot of players well and truly off their game. But if you're not first, you're last. And the Cats lost this one. Not good enough. And we move on. So let's get into some team stats here right after a word from our sponsor, Cyril Cook Forest, for the last time in these reaction videos of 2025.
The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist. Visit them at Shop 1211 Leather Street in Breakwater. Phone them on 035 222 2244 or visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au and use the offer code GOCATS in the voucher field at checkout to get 20% off your next online purchase.
Win, lose or draw, thank you, Cyril Cook Florist, for your ongoing support of the Hoops Crew and all we get up to. There's lots of highs, there's lows, but you've always been there, and we thank you very, very much for that support that you provided our team over the course of season 2025. Let's get into the stats here. And as I said before, the clubs were as dead of a heat as you could possibly get at halftime. Disposals were the same. Kicks and handballs were the same. Geelong had one more inside 50, but then you can see the shift. Given the final numbers, you can see the shift. Brisbane just dominated. They controlled the ball. The Cats couldn't get their hands on it. We, fumbled and there was execution errors, and the Lions got their tails up, their momentum going, and we just couldn't curtail it. And so that's reflected in a whole host of different stats here. That efficiency inside 50 was a killer. And all credit to our backmen, who did a really solid job, but they were not supported at all by the midfield or the forward line. Stoppages, again, got away from us. Things were close enough in that first half. And again, in some ways, it was kind of played on Geelong's terms because we were still losing clearances. That's never been our one wood, unfortunately. I really wish it was something we'd be better at, but it's not been our one wood for quite some time. But we rebound, we set up and defend and push back the other way so well. But the damn wall broke because the Cats were just under siege. The midfielders just could not get the ball, help to get the ball out. They couldn't position themselves well. There were skill issues, all sorts, like some really critical ones coming out of defense. And we'll talk more about some of those individuals responsible soon. But the numbers here just kind of really highlight that dominance from the Brisbane midfield. Possession, again, kind of mirrors everything. Turnovers, there's your skill execution errors. Brisbane down on their season average. Geelong up. Again, all the data here shows, especially in that final quarter, the second of these graphs here, that just shows how much the Lions were basically walking on water through that last quarter. They couldn't be stopped, and the game was cooked. Marks inside 50, contested marks. The one that really bothers me most as we scroll down a little bit here is the tackle stats, and it really highlighted the lack of intensity. Geelong just were not on the ball. Not even close, and highlighted most by the tackles inside 50. When we turn it over, and that happens when you're a team that goes when you go inside 50, most inside 50 thrusts don't result in a scoring shot. But what Geelong has historically this season done so well is lock the ball in there and give themselves repeat opportunities. And the tackles inside 50 has been one of those lead metrics that we look at to reflect that. We're missing today. Yesterday in the grand final. So not good enough. Absolutely. I spoke about, our players not being on the ball, some of them just not being ready to play. And that's, I think, best highlighted in this particular data point. And everything else, they're usually just kind of throwaway stats, the bounce. Oh, look, 1% is, again, down, not good enough by the Cats. Again, probably further highlights the lack of pressure that we were putting on the Lions in the game that mattered most. Bounces is whatever. All right, let's move on to some player stats here. Max Holmes led the game with 33, but I'm going to... I think I'm a dissenting voice amongst a few Cats fans. Having hosted Post-Game Live last night, I heard a lot of love for Max Holmes. He accumulated the ball a lot and did some pretty good things, and he kicked a goal. But as I mentioned, critical errors before, he was responsible for 4 of them. Direct turnovers, some of which led to goals. He butchered the ball. There was 4 where they were absolute mungs off the boot. He lost his composure at different stages and didn't execute to the level that we know and would expect him to deliver at. There was probably 25 really, really good possessions here and about 8 that were just not up to standard. And 4 of them, like I said, they were obvious critical errors. And so I think in some respects, he kind of hurt us, despite the fact that you could not question. So I spoke about effort. You could not question his endeavor all day. He fought and fought and fought. And I really appreciate what Max Holmes provided on the day. Bailey Smith was solid enough, but just not impactful enough. He accumulated, but he just didn't hurt. Lawson Humphries, one of his best games in a long, long time and was under siege. He was one of those defenders that just had to work and work and work, but he was really poised, did some really great things, especially in the first half. Tom Atkins was solid, competed really hard, 10 clearances, 20 disposals. He led the ground for contested possessions, did some really good things there. Ollie Dempsey was one of our best, but did fill his boots with some junk time goals. But probably had the better of his matchup there on the wing. Graham Myers, I think, again, was one of our best as well. Really poised, really clean, and gave his teammates every opportunity. They just didn't take it. Sean Manor, not his best day. Finished with a goal in his first AFL Grand Final, but not a fantastic effort from him. Zach Guthrie tried, but He was one of the defenders that probably had lowered his colours though. He really tried. He did some really great things at different stages, and then he made some really critical errors at points. And I've seen some criticism come for one Connor O'Sullivan because of some of these. And I think it was the Herald Sun that cited and gave Connor O'Sullivan a really bad one for critical errors by the goal line, ignoring the fact that the kick from Zach Guthrie was woeful. And set him up to fail. Like there's some ignorance there from people who really just don't know what they're talking about. But Zach Guthrie didn't have his best day. Jack Bowes fought well. I was good with that. Jai Clark again had a really good game too. He did not lower his colours, and I think only improved his standing within the club and within the supporter base as well. He fought and tried really hard. Mark O'Connor did a great job again on Cam Rayner. Tyson Stengel was a what-if game. Like he had a couple opportunities for goal, didn't take them, and I think probably just reflects his whole back half of the season, which was just close but no cigar. Connor O'Sullivan, like I said, tried really hard, stood up quite well at different stages, and showed some really good signs for his future development. But let's make sure we're clear. The Smalls got and the midfield got the Cats in this occasion. The tall forwards from the Lions kicked one goal between them. So Connor O'Sullivan did some great things in that respect. Jack Henry as well. He was one of our absolute best. He rebounded so well. He intercepted incredibly well. He brought the ball down incredibly well. Incredibly impressed by Jack Henry's performance. And I'm just going to take the opportunity to walk back right now all of the foreskin jokes that I made about Jack Henry through season 2023 or 24, whatever it was, because he's been exceptional. He's had a fantastic year and he's been under siege at different stages. Brad Close did some cool things at different stages, but really didn't impact like we needed him to. Mark Blitzarves did a great job in the ruck, but his influence was pretty well nipped in the bud. And again, very well coached by Fags and the team because they knew exactly how to nullify him somewhat. Sam DeConing also tried really hard as a key defender and was part of that group that kept the key forwards of Brisbane down to one goal. Danger, after having one of his best games in 5 years, had close to his worst game in 5 years for the grand final, which is just really, really unfortunate. Never a good time for it. I'm sure he'll be back and move on in what might be his final season, 2026. Jeremy Cameron, geez, I was impressed by Jeremy Cameron. He didn't kick a goal. He broke his arm. He fought. You could not question his endeavour. You could not question his effort. He did everything he could to get this team over the line, and it just wasn't enough. And that tackle, the one where he grabbed Jasper Fletcher by the scruff of his jumper and just pulled him to the line and it re-injured his arm in the process, was absolutely extraordinary. That is the moment of the grand final as far as I'm concerned. I know, obviously, we lost, but that is, for me, the most iconic moment of that actual match. And a massive shout out to Jeremy Cameron, who's just had a phenomenal year. 88 goals on the season is an extraordinary effort. And I'm just really disappointed for him that it didn't amount to a premiership. Reece Stanley was very ineffective, and you could tell was not, a bit like the concerns around Lachie Neale, was not ready for this grand final. And he's a momentum guy. He needs momentum on his side, and he went in as cold as you could get, and it showed. Shannon Neale had a pretty poor performance here. What I was impressed about when we played them in the qualifying final is that he got his couple of goals. I think it was 1 to 2 goals, but he also brought the ball down. Harris Andrews got his hands on the ball because he's the best key defender in the competition, but he did a good job of at least bringing the ball down and serving the Smalls. He didn't do that. He got beaten in every contest, could not read the ball in flight. He was pushed off it too easily. Probably his worst game of the year. Oisin Mullen tried his guts out, and ultimately we had to move him off Hugh McCluggage to go deal with the Zach Baileys and the Charlie Camerons of the world, and then McCluggage got on a roll there because he was free. But in the time that he spent tagging, did a great job and kicked a goal. Doesn't mind finals football, does Oisin Mullen. And Jack Martin came in as the sub and only played about 20% game time, so there's not much we can make of his stats. The game was well and truly over by the time he was injected into it. So those are your team numbers. Like I said, very disappointing performance from the Cats. Far too many passengers on the day. And you just can't have that in a grand final. And that's I don't think Brisbane had any particularly extraordinary players who put in extraordinary performances. Some of the data will suggest otherwise. And obviously Will Ashcroft's won his second Norm Smith medal in as many years at the age of 21. That is wild. But I don't think they had absolute obvious standouts that dominated the game. But they played a team game. It was a team effort and they deserved to win. Geelong had too many passengers and it was only a matter of time before that damn wall broke. And it did late in the third and the game was over. So that's where we're going to wrap things up for this reaction video. It's a really somber feeling. Hate how this feels. We've gotten used to it a little bit. Geelong puts themselves in a spot to contend every single year. And that means that heartbreak is often imminent, be it a prelim, be it a grand final. But it makes the highs like 2022 all the better when you break through. A disappointing result, but thank you all for having tuned in and checked out this video. And thank you to everyone who's part of the Hoops community, who even just stumbles upon these because the YouTube algorithm puts them in front of you and watches these reaction videos, because I try to make sure, and the result is horrible and it feels awful, and had moments like, geez, you wouldn't mind, eking out a couple tears here and just putting it behind you. But instead it's just sitting there and it feels miserable. And it is what it is, right? Again, we are very fortunate as Cats fans to have seen so much success. 4 premierships in about 20 years now. And that's amazing. And we've been lingering there or thereabouts, giving ourselves opportunities more or less every year in those 20. It means that heartbreak is always close. And we experienced it again yesterday. But we pick ourselves up, we dust ourselves off, and we go again for season 2026. And as a member of the Hoops crew, I'm very much looking forward to being there with you. Thank you, as I said, to everyone who's tuned in and checked out all the content over the course of this year, who's been watching these reaction videos, who shares their thoughts. It's been awesome to get to chat to you over the course of the year. And we'll wrap this one up. So if you enjoyed it, please make sure to drop a like on the video. Share this video with your friends and family. Get the word out there about the Hoops crew and all the content we're producing. The men's season is coming to a close, but there is still going to be more to watch, especially the Hoopies that we have on Monday night. That is our live, essentially our best and fairest, our awards show. We'll go through the entire season. Myself, Ben, and the chaps will all be there together to pick it apart. There'll be plenty of AFLW content courtesy of the chaps in particular. And my plans for the postseason are going to revolve a lot around trade and draft time, free agency as well. We're then also going to be talking a whole bunch of video games. There's going to be some streams and those sorts of things that we'll do just to make sure that we're all as a group still getting around each other, supporting one another, and keeping in touch. So I look forward to doing that with you as well. If you like our stuff, like I said, we're not going away. So make sure to consider checking out our Patreon. That is patreon.com/thehoopscrew, where you can subscribe and get early access, extended, and exclusive content delivered directly to your email inbox. It'll be a pleasure to have you. You'll find me on socials at Paul James Games. That's Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram. The Hoops Crew you'll find at The Hoops Crew. And until next time, remain Geelong strong, everyone. It's a tough, bitter pill to swallow, but remain Geelong strong, everyone. We'll be back up and about next year. Watch this space. Some cool things are coming, I am sure. I'll see you later, everyone. And congratulations, Brisbane, once again.